Well, good morning. So we're working our way again through doing imago relationship therapy in the space between. And last week we looked at the human agenda, which is to be connected. And chapter 5, the human problem is that that connection gets ruptured. So remember, in a quantum perspective, relating is our nature. We are part of the cosmic connection of the universe. And when that connection is broken, the human problem ensues. So the authors state, we posit that for all, and I added the emphasis there, human beings, a threatening event occurs in the child caretaker space between. An intrusive or neglectful caretaker, or both, ruptures the child's resonance, which in turn fractures our cosmic connecting, and the sensation of full aliveness, joyful relaxation, and wonder is replaced with anxiety, initiating the human problem. So basically, all of us at some point experience this connectional rupture, and that disconnect triggers anxiety, which is then converted into anger and depression. So, quoting the authors, imago theory points to connectional rupture as the root cause of all dysfunction. The loss of capacity for social engagement produces the feelings of a separate self that is so emotionally isolated and defended that it mirrors the separate self of classical psychotherapy. In fact, they may be the same. And I thought that was really interesting, that for years we've looked at the individual, forgetting that it started out connected, so this is the result. However, the authors insist, we think it's possible to give the story a new ending, to finish childhood as it should have been, thus breaking the transgenerational cycle of nurturing failures by restoring and sustaining connection. And how is that going to happen? In a conscious relationship. So they go on, why does disconnect occur? And they explore two ways, nurturing deficits and repressive socialization. And nurturing deficits show up because none of us are perfect. Your parents are perfect, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect. And again, this is not about blaming parents. All parents do the best they could do, but we just haven't yet figured out how to raise our kids without, doing some damage or meeting all their needs all the time, basically. And remember, it's always a subjective perception of the child that determines if something's missing or not. The parents can do the same thing for both kids, but one feels that something was missing, either maybe too intrusive or neglectful. It's a subjective perception of the child. Repressive socialization shows up when the needs of society come up against the desires and needs of the individual. Now think of messages you might have gotten regarding the human functions of thinking, feeling, acting, sensing. So for example, that weren't very encouraging. Think of messages you got that were not encouraging. For example, thinking, don't think that way. Listen to me, not yourself. Or feeling, you shouldn't feel that, whatever it is. Or don't cry. Acting, do what I tell you. What you did was stupid. Or sensing, don't indulge your senses. You get the idea. We've all got them. And caretaker and parents are just doing their job. They're trying to keep the child alive and out of trouble. And they do their best. We all did. But often the messages match the messages they received as children themselves. So in effect, we grew up with the understanding that it's not acceptable to be who we are. So that's how disconnect can occur. So, and what are the consequences of the disconnect? And they highlight 4. Anxiety and the development of character defenses, the birth of desire, self-absorption, and then they spend a long time on symbiosis and the resultant loss of of empathy and objectification, the inability to see others as humans, but rather as objects. And for them, symbiosis is sort of the key, that it's not respecting difference. Or, that, and I'll explain that a little bit, but they go into a lot of that. But think of what's going on in the world, black, white, Israel, Jew, Muslim, Christian, whatever. It's, not that the world has to be the way I see it. Anyway, so the first one, anxiety and the development of character defenses. Danger triggers adaptive defenses. Okay, anger is our protest against our potential demise, and depression is our submission to its possibility. And then they go into quite a detail about two common defenses, the idea of maximizing and minimizing. That one person tends to maximize more energy into it, one minimize. So, and often in a relationship, one's a maximizer, one's a minimizer. Second is the birth of desire. And I'm quoting here, when anxiety is triggered by connectional rupture, desire is born. Desire of the restoration of the wavical nature we had in the original condition of connection, and the sensation of joyful aliveness that was lost with its rupture. And the wavical is, remember, in a quantum universe, everything is both wave and particle. And they use the term wavical. And so that wavical is broken, and then we, desire is born to get it back. We see this, they say, as the quest of everyone. Anxiety and their conclusion is desire and anxiety are not indigenous to humans. They replace full aliveness, joy, and wonder, which are our original condition. All right? And they go on to explain that. The third one, self-absorption. Ruptured connecting is so exquisitely painful that we cannot avoid turning in towards ourselves and become self-absorbed. Self-absorption is a necessary element of self-defense. In the self-absorbed state, energy is diverted away from engaging with others, causing us to focus instead on our pain, on our own subjective and often distorted reality. And the last one is symbiosis, which they spend quite a bit of time on. The self-absorption that is operative in defending ourselves leads to yet another barrier to intimacy, symbiosis, which is a lack of awareness of the separate, subjective reality of others. It is symbiosis that lies at the core of disconnection. It is symbiosis, therefore, that is responsible for the lion's share of human relationship problems. The basic operating premise of the symbiotic mind is that my world is the world. In couple relationships, symbiosis manifests as a belief that one's own reality must also be the reality of one's partner. And again, that then symbiosis leads to the loss of empathy and the treating others as objects. They go on to say, while symbiosis may be the universal human disease, the tragic consequence of the emotional cognitive isolation is the loss of empathy, the capacity to experience the inner states of other human beings and distinguish them from our own. And interesting, he says, although controversial, prolific research tends to concur that empathy, the natural capacity to experience others as they experience themselves in moment-to-moment interactions, is an innate human capacity that is built into the hardware of the human brain called mirror neurons. And they give examples of children who their first reaction is one of empathy, right? And lastly then, self-absorption, emotional symbiosis, and loss of empathy contribute to our inability to see others as humans, so we objectify them. When they become objects to us, they are no longer human, and we can treat them as we wish. This is the source of our most grievous sins: prejudice, racism, manipulation, devaluation, inequality, you name it. And paradoxically, the dehumanization of another person dehumanizes oneself. All right? So again, I know, heavy sledding, but the idea is that the human problem is that we are born connected, and then that gets ruptured, and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to figure it out. And what they're saying is in a conscious relationship, we can get back that original connection. Okay? Anyway, see you next week, and we'll finish up chapter 5, where they sort of go through the developmental stages and show how it shows up in different areas as a child growing up, but also then how that translates into in an intimate relationship. All right? Have a great day. Have a great week.